This video, I'm going to look at another app in my struggle to learn Compose for Android Studio. Okay, so what this one does is has sliders. I think they're called SeekBars. If I do an XML, I end up making a SeekBar, but here over in Compose, they're called sliders. I have 3 sliders. Controlling the amount of red, green, and blue. 1 sliders. And then I'm changing the color of a text view. Up here, I'm working on a 0 to 1 scale, and that's the sort of natural slider that comes out of the box. But it was more about, for me, because that's easily changed. But it was more for me about the color that sort of I had the most control over in Compose, Jetpack or whatever it is, was based on floating point numbers, 3 floating point numbers, red and green and blue, from 0 to 1. So it was more about making the color easier than making the slider easier. But I do down at the bottom convert the amount to a number between 0 and 255 for RGB, and also I give like a hex version. All right, so I can go all the way from 000, which is black, all the way up to 255, 255, 255, or 111. That's FFF, and that's white. Okay, so what do we got here? So I made like state variables corresponding to the red and green and blue, and I started off at sort of half red and a quarter blue and a quarter green and an eighth blue, just for some arbitrary start. And then I'm making my integer versions of that, so I made a place to remember them. And I'm using remember for the R, G, and B. I just made the R1, G1, and B1 sort of regular variables. Okay, and I'm multiplying it by the 255 and then using a round to int. Okay. All right, so then here is my RGB Compose sliders theme. Here's my surface. I have a column. And so then I'm working with column, and then I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 rows, it looks like. Okay. The first row is just a text. I added a modifier with some padding of 24 dp so that it wasn't scrunched up against the top or against the white square. So that's what the padding did. It was a vertical padding. And then the text was Compose RGB color sliders. There you see. The next row has a text. I gave it a modifier. I gave it a border of dark gray. So you can see the dark gray border around there with a thickness of 2 dp. And then we chained together these modifiers. So I gave it a width of 100 and a height of 100. So that made this square shape. And then I set the background to color RGB. So this is the thing that worked easily with the floating point numbers between 0 and 1. So that was my choice based on the color, so I didn't have to work too hard for the color here. And it also made it easy for the sliders, but I could have fixed the sliders more easily than the color was annoying. So once I got the color to work, I stuck with it, and it was this 0 to 1 approach. And then the text in that box, I didn't put any text in the box. I'm interested more in it for its color. Okay. Now I'm on next things to the red slider. And so I have a text and a slider and a text, and the first text said red. I gave it a width. So that helped the red, the green, and the blue sort of line up by giving this text a width. So that gave me a bit of alignment. And then the text said red, and then I have my slider. And if I didn't add a modifier and control the width of the slider was sort of too big. So that was an important addition here. If I just slapped it down, I had the slider, but I was not seeing this text over here displaying the value. The value was my state variable R from above. If I change the slider on value change, I am going to set R equal to IT, so it is the value of the slider, so like the default property, the progress, if it were a SeekBar, and that will be, R will be set to that. And then I also updated the integer version. So I added to the typical on value change, this is the typical on value change, and then I added this additional statement. And then my second text, so there's a text before labeling it that it's red, the slider which controls the amount of red, and then a text showing the amount of red. And again, for alignment reasons, I've got a float, and so the number of decimal places can sort of jump up and down on me, but I set it that I wanted explicitly for decimal places, which kind of prevented it from too much jumping around. Okay. And then green is the same as red, except it says green and it's the G variable and the G1 variable. And blue is the same, except it says blue and it's the B variable and the B1 variable. Here's my first display row. And it's just 3 text boxes. I'm giving it them all. I'm using a modifier within the text box to control its width, again, for sort of lining up purposes. And I'm saying that the R and the G and the B. So I'm announcing what it is I'm displaying. And then I'm using R1, G1, and B1. Those are the integer versions. And I'm casting that as a string, so then I can concatenate it onto another string. Okay. And then I'm doing my last row is my second display. And here, again, 3 text boxes for the red, the green, and the blue. I am doing a width again of 80 dp, so again, keeping them sort of aligned here. And I'm taking my text of the text box is the integer numbers, the R1, the G1, the B1. I am setting them to string, but giving it an argument of 16, or as it's saying here, the radix. And so that is converting it to hex. And then when I had very small hex numbers, taking the blue way down, way down, way down, when I get to single digits, and well, it's not working. So, oh yeah, it is working. It's in the set. It's not, I don't do any padding here on the decimal line, but on the hexadecimal line, I do padding. So then it's when I get to single digits, it's not 8, but 08. So the 16 put it into hex, and then the pad start says that I wanted up to 2 places and to pad in the front with a 0 if I don't have 2 places. So when my numbers are very small, I get in the hex line, I get a padding 0 in the front. And that's all I wanted to show you on this one. So again, just trying to learn this compose thing. I had my state variables with my remember and then some related variables. The new thing here for the most part was the slider. Somewhere in here I had one of the main references to a slider. They show there, this is the sort of basic one, but on the same link, they'll show you how to have a range other than 0 to 1. But the main things of the slider, it was important for me. This wasn't in the simple thing that they showed. They were putting my sliders in a row so that the text was in the same row. But their example had it in a column, so their display was below. And so the sort of that the slider sort of took up the whole space didn't matter to them. But so this was definitely a thing because of the way I'm arranging my screen that I needed. So control the width so it doesn't fill up the whole thing. Give it a value related to my state variable. Tell me what to do on change. I changed both R and R1. So that's it. Thanks for your attention.